This is the High Caliber Man podcast with myself, Hugh Mayers. Recently, I was in conversation with Kevin Brown of Kemet Radio Talkback Show, and we discussed a trend that seems to be arising in the British Caribbean community, where African Caribbean men who have dated outside of their race, for want of a better term, are trending back to form relationships and pursue relationships with women of Caribbean heritage. And so we had a somewhat of a deep dive, and want you guys to just check this show out, follow the conversation, and remember to like, share, and subscribe.
To discuss the matter at hand, which is this video that has been making the rounds where this lady speaks her mind, right, about the fact that there are older Black men who spent their best years dating white women,
right,
who are now wanting to, in their old age, wanting to get back with Black women. You can see how for some Black women that can be quite a frustrating reality. So I just, if you just say, well, is it true, or and do Black women really think that this is what's happening? Black men really doing that? Are they sort of spending their best years with other women, and then in their old age, when they are, getting on a bit, that's when the Black woman suddenly becomes attractive insofar as perhaps becoming a carer. So it's a very interesting.
So the Black women are becoming a viable option at that point. Is that the kind of argument?
This is what we're exploring, right? This is what we're going to explore. But let me see if I can bring up the video. Because of how I'm going to play it, you might not hear it, but watch it anyway, so you know what she says. Yeah. But I want to play it for the listeners. Let me see if I can bring it up, and then we will have a little discussion about it.
So listen, the other day, family friend come tell me how he's got feelings for me. This is a man who's been constantly dating throughout his life, white women, big man in his 60s now. Listen, Black man, when you've been digging out whatever you've been digging out all your life, and then you come to 1 foot in the grave, you hear me? 1 foot in the grave, and then you want us still beautiful Black women to nurse you, because this one now, he's got heart disease, he's got a dicky hip, and some other whatever. Don't come to Black women to clean up your mess after you've ignored us for a lifetime. Carry on with the same white woman that you think is so superior, or your choice. Do not come to us. We are not interested. Return of the prodigal, I call it. We've got nothing to offer us, and want us good Black women now to come and use up our good self on you.
Hugh, I know you haven't heard that, but you know what she said in the videos. I wanted to just break that down with you, because a lot there. And on the Talkback Show, we don't mind tackling difficult conversations, because in the Black community, people are talking about these things.
Absolutely. There are difficult conversations to be had. They are to be had, no doubt.
So Hugh, when you watched the video, what was your first reaction? What did you react to?
Yeah, well, you sent me the video earlier. I watched the video, and to be honest with you, I suppose I have to approach this not as like an activist, right? And when I'm speaking about Black and white relationships or interracial marriage or dating, but I'm speaking as a therapist. But when I first watched it, I mean, it was interesting because the lady was saying about these men coming back to Black women as they're older, and we're nice and we're sweet and we're so on and so forth. And, they're almost like, well, you're coming for us now, and we're the prize. But I'm like, when you're 60, you just want to partner up with somebody if you're single, and I guess see your days out, really, right? I don't know, all that smoke and all that energy and all that, is a guy suitable or not suitable? The fact, whoever he dated before, I don't know how relevant that is in that sense. Like, I was kind of like thinking at 60, does she have that many offers? Is she oversubscribed? I mean, that was one of the things that came to mind. But I can understand. So if you said controversial, then let's go there if we're gonna go there. But I get in spirit. There was a level of there was a level of what I anticipate was like, or what I observed, should I say, was like a level of resentment, as if in your prime years, Mr. Man, we weren't good enough for you. But now that you're shot to pieces and like kind of past it, when you used to make your eyes past us, but now you're actually past it. Now you want to tune into us. So there's a kind of level of resentment, and I mean, I can understand that. I can understand that. There's racism, there's colorism, there's texturism, there's all these other kind of isms that probably in terms of dating field and marriage don't affect Black men the same way it affects Black women. So there's going to be some extra resentment if I get it correctly.
But this is what I've been talking about for some time, right? Because I think that Black men seem to have their blinkers on, right? I keep saying, let's go to the phone lines. Hello, caller. Hello. Yeah. I think there's something truth on what I said. I think right? You right, and don't you right? Now, if no, if anything,
Enough respect. Respect. Kevin, you know what I'm fascinated about is the fact that it's seen as men coming back. That's what I think is interesting, because like I said to you, speaking as a therapist, I can understand the dynamics in play. There's one level of it which is, you know what I mean, people are people and people will be attracted to whoever they kind of like desire, right? And you put people in certain spaces, whatever their race, their background, their class, their religion, whatever, and human beings will just couple up, whether you like it or not, whether it's in this time, before the transatlantic slave trade, before racism, white supremacy. Do you know what I mean? That people have intermingled, tribes, nations, clans, people mix. That's just a normal. I mean, J.A. Rogers wrote a beautiful set of books called Sex and Race, Volume 1, 2, and 3, and Nature Knows No Color Lines. The whole series is about that.
Yeah, but I have to challenge you and this mixing thing that you're talking
about. No, bring it on, because that was my preamble. But come with it, Kevin, come with it. Let's do this.
Because I'm not saying that there hasn't been some mixing. Yes, go on, but maybe the way you're suggesting, as if it was sort of like a universal thing. I'm not sure that's
Oh, no. I wanted to start from the general to give the listeners like a kind of wide context of how I'm speaking. But then, we can narrow it down to the colonized people, the former enslaved people, the people that they've been taught nothing apart from white supremacy and white beauty standards. So, in fact, the norm would be, according to our indoctrination, is for us to aspire to women of another race as black men, or at least the lightest women possible amongst our own race. We spoke about this weeks ago. We spoke about Buju Banton and Browning. So it's part of our indoctrination. I'm not gonna play around with the elephant in the room like it's not there. That is the elephant in the room. We're gonna get to it. So definitely there is an issue amongst the former colonized people, the former enslaved people, that we've been taught European beauty standards. And so some men, some black men, they can't get their hands on a white woman quick enough. And yeah, it comes from that place of inferiority, although that doesn't speak to everybody that's in a mixed relationship, because some people it's just that's how it went, that's who they met. But there is a trend that makes you more. I know that there's a lot of people in our community that will be suspicious because they said there's too much of a trend for it to just be incidental or accidental, that this is more like automatic, systematic, remote control programming that's being played out. But what I find fascinating is the idea of the men coming back. Like, what's that about?
Well, this is it. Yes, so this is unique, as you said, in that, yes, we know that black men, especially those of a Caribbean background, half of them in this country. I mean, it blows my mind.
Staggering. That is staggering. That is staggering. I must admit.
half of black men in this country, you know, are with white women. Half. I mean, no other race of men come even close. I mean, the Asians are like 2 to 4% mixing. The white people, it's 6%. Black men of Caribbean heritage, half of you, 50% of you. And I think what black men seem not to, care about is that, of course, black women are observing this behavior, right?
Yeah.
You hear basically that's what the lady was saying. It's like you're forgetting that black women are observing this behavior. This behavior which suggests that for black women are essentially being rejected by their own men.
Yeah.
Talking about small numbers, if you're saying the black men who are of Caribbean heritage and said, "Look, I want nothing to do with black women."
Yeah. No, I hear that. No, I hear that. That's what I'm saying. When I watched the video at first.
What's interesting in this from the video is that they do have the capacity to want to come in old age to black women.
But that is what I find staggering. Well, there's two elements to it that's staggering. All right. So although I spoke as Mr. Universal and I gave you the Dr. King speech, because I mean that's the truth, isn't it? Like, we're allowed to love what we want to love, right? But then there's a context, and then there's politics, and then there's history, right? And then there's a psychology behind it. So then I have to call it that. Yeah, I do think a lot of it has come out of that. There's many manifestations of us living under racism and white supremacy as colonized and oppressed people, and it manifests in the street violence with the young people. It manifests in certain dysfunctional behaviors, self-loathing, and different things that exist amongst us. And I think the industrial level of interracial mixing, not race mixing or intermarriage per se, because in and of itself, I'm still giving it a context that to me it's fine, but the industrial level of it in the African Caribbean community amongst the men, to me, is more symptomatic of a self-depreciation or a lack of appreciation for the beautiful black queens. And so, yeah, I hear the sister's resentment, I hear the sister's anger, and I don't think she was just speaking for herself. I think that she would have had if it was a room full of women or an auditorium, she would have had a hallelujahs and acknowledgements from the sisters, right?
Right.
But the second part is the coming back, though. That's the bit that's got me double astounded or flabbergasted. What's with the coming back? That's very interesting.
We know that, for example, black women age better.
Hello?
That's an interesting thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah. I think you said something about, did you allude to Black Don't Crack? Is that what you're saying? The line went a bit bad.
Well, yes. It's essentially that's what I'm saying, is that black women age gracefully. To put it mildly, they age gracefully. So a black female in her 50s and even 60s still looks like she's in her late 30s and 40s. And so, I mean, I don't know. These men would have to ring the show and explain why, having spent their life dating white women, they now want to come back to black women.
I find that really interesting. I find that really interesting.
Here's the thing: you got some clues though from that viral video. You got some clues because she was suggesting that this gentleman who now says he fancies her, right? He's over 60 and has health conditions,
right?
So potentially she if she was to accept his offer of sort of going into a relationship, I mean, she become a carer more or less.
Yeah. Well, so is it possible, right, that they're coming? If there's a trend of this idea of coming back, could some of it be influenced by they just want somebody to take care of them? They think culturally, right, that maybe black women from their own culture may have more of a. They're not it's our culture, although it's changing. Being in this country isn't old people home, innit? We don't really have them things in like Antigua and Trinidad and the Caribbean, like just widespread, innit? You live with somebody, you belong to somebody, but we don't really do old people's home. Yeah, you don't really park them off like that. So, and that's from something that was something that very much when I was a child that was very disdained amongst, in our culture, the way we look and think, well, that's bizarre. Like you do that to your elders, like, so maybe there's that kind of mentality that where I'm coming back home because I can look after and get a little steam fish and buy me a little bit look after and not get parked off in the old people's home. Or there might be even a bit of an unconscious spiritual side of it. Like, you know what, you're getting ready to go back to your maker and, people get a bit, I don't know, sentimental, or they remember their mom, or, like the power of the mother to be mothered again as you return back to being a child, once a man, twice a child. Is there some kind of coming home? I mean, I have spoken to some brothers, right? Not old men or not past it men, but, that have dated white women and then they've got to a certain stage in their life where they feel like they're bringing through certain complications because of the intermarriage and interracial relationship, and they just feel like they're in a space to maybe, be with somebody from their own culture. So I'm aware of that, but that isn't a trend. It's just, a couple of men that I've spoken to that have kind of shared those sentiments with me. So yeah, I'm really interested. It would be really brilliant if somebody in that position, could fold in and kind of like share some kind of like give us some insights, because that it's the coming back. The going, I understand. There's so much been written on it. There's so much been said on it. You know what I mean? Like we get that, but the doubling back thing is like, this is now making me, even as a therapist and as a student of psychology, scratch my head and say, what's going on here under the surface? What is going on here? This is really interesting.
Do you think that black women are hiding their resentment? I mean, this lady in the video, she's spoken out, right?
Yes.
But could it be that she actually is reflecting a wider resentment amongst black women, but black women have just decided to keep quiet about the behaviors of black men, especially African Caribbean men?
I actually
who are completely fed up and frustrated by the behavior of black men, but they're not speaking out.
Well, I think that lady spoke in a way, like I said earlier, if she was in an auditorium, or a stadium full of African Caribbean women, black women in particular, right? Or maybe African American women, and she shared those sentiments, I think the rapture, the roof would have come off in terms of like acknowledging what she said. And I think that a lot of African Caribbean women do carry that resentment and disdain, and they are oftentimes I'm in spaces where they share that. To be honest with you, I mean, I'm not around a lot of women that, apart from maybe the workplace where it's professional, you might only hear a mutter or a little funny eye contact or a little, push the mouth, watching a kind of little lip movement. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think black women are sick to their stomach of that. And who am I to judge? You know what I mean? Because who am I to judge a person's love? But then again, who am I to judge the women's resentment? Because they're thinking, we look after these men as children, we give birth to them, we nurture them, we raise them. And that's the kind of
and then
love that they show towards the
yeah.
archetype of a black woman. That's the kind of love that they show. You know what I mean? So I mean, if in our culture, if we can get so women can be so policing and monitoring, just if a black man just likes a light-skinned woman and he's a little bit darker, you know what I mean? Like we monitor each other, who's colorist and who isn't colorist, and who only likes women with soft hair. And do you know what I mean? So in terms of dating outwards, yeah, black women are going to be full of resentment, and I challenge anybody that's listening to tell me otherwise. Until I'll stand corrected if you bring me evidence. But as far as I'm concerned, the jury is come back. The jury's not out. The jury's come back. And generally speaking, in African Caribbean culture, black women generally do not like the fact that black men marry outside. And so often, more than anything else, not just marry outside or marry outside of their culture, but marry white women or date white women. And they've got the perception of when they marry white women or are with white women, they're more giving and more romantic and more committed and look after the children better. And you know what I mean? These are the kind of things that I've heard said. Do you know what I mean? These are the kind of things that I've heard expressed. So I'm not even speaking from these are not my words. These are just words that have been communicated to me.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying to you, that, we're speaking conversations. We're talking, we're just making public conversations.
Yeah.
Because I think the community now needs to have the conversation. I think it's self-harming for us to be privately saying that, we're disgruntled with our behaviors. I think we need to now challenge each other and really question, why do we have these behaviors? What's driving them?
Yeah.
And it can't be just, you love who you love, because no other ethnic group reads like that. None.
And there's something else to bolt onto that. There's something else to bolt onto that as well, Kevin. I think is that you love who you love. That usually sounds good because, in a sense of, with other races, like an Asian guy, he just happens to have a white wife, right? But he hasn't got nothing negative to say about Asian women. He just happened to fancy this particular white woman, right? No problem. Do you, kid? Do you? But too often in our culture, if we be honest as well, there's a lot of black men that have a lot of negative things to say about black women, as if to say, and that's my justification, that's my reason for why I've decided to go in a particular direction. And then that's when it becomes problematic for me. I think that's the thing what leaves a nail in my craw. Not the fact, like I'm a person that... Yeah, because black women are X, Y, and Z, and all these negative things. And then this is why I'm going to go in this particular direction. Yeah.
Let's go to the phone lines. Hello, caller.
So what I'd like to say is that, for the interracial,
Over to the expert. Hugh, do you want to tackle that one?
That's a difficult question. I would say it's probably both. It's probably a bit of both. I'm sure that there are people that are interracial relationships that are deeply in love, and some of them are lost. Probably some of them are lustful. Some of them are based on exotic sexual fantasy. Some of them is jungle fever. I think it goes right across the board. I wouldn't put them. Like it's going to be a continuum. From the most sincerest romantic love to the most kind of like primal exotic stereotypes that we've been brought up on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely.
What makes that question complicated by just anecdotal evidence, just from observation. Black men date a range of white women. It's not so it's. It's kind of hard to pinpoint what's driving the high numbers, because they date a range. It's not like they're picking an archetypal type of white woman. It's a whole range that they go across. But if you put relationships in general, though, Hugh, if you talk about relationships in general, I guess the challenge is the group behavior, right? Within the Caribbean community in the UK, the group behavior is a bit different. To say, for example, and we've spoken about it on the show, where we know interracial relationships in the Asian community is like little or nothing, like 2 to 4%,
Yeah.
little or not. So Asian men marry and date Asian women, and guess what? The black community knows this,
Mm-hmm.
and we respect. And guess what, Hugh? We even respect them for that.
Yeah, yeah.
We respect the Asians for that. We're like, oh, these Asians, yeah, man, you can't go near the women.
Yeah,
Hugh, how many times have you heard black men say that?
yeah. No, that's known. That's known.
No. This is the thing.
And that's even for us, and I can even throw this in the mix as well. And that's even black men who are part of, say, for example, the Islamic faith, where there's a lot of Asian Muslims in this country. Even those black men know, it ain't really running too tough with. Nothing ain't really running over there, man. You know what I mean?
But what I'm saying to you, that our psychology is very strange, right? We black men, we respect the Asian community for how they when they come out to their women, they don't mess about.
Right.
We respect them. But then when you look at how we look at all women or the black women, there's no respect there. It's very strange, isn't it?
Well. All right. Let me. I could throw this in the mix, so to be a bit of a devil's advocate as well. Though there is an argument to say, right, that it's kind of like interrelated. So, for example, some people might say in the Asian community, Asian women act in a way where they defer to the leadership and the masculinity of Asian men, whether submissively, intentionally, or just being subdued. But you know what I mean? But, no. But I'm giving you cultural archetypes. I'm giving you culture. No, but I'm giving you cultural archetypes, as whereas, so there's a respect both ways, and there's a kind of like leadership on the man's part. Whereas, black women there's an argument to say black women are very vocal, very sassy, nobody can't tell me what to do. So in that kind of context, it's like, well, who to me too chivalrous over you and fight for you, and nobody can't even tell you what to do. You know what I mean? Like, you have some black women saying we're the least protected, and says, but are you under our leadership? But I'm just giving you another side of the argument, because there are different people that come from different perspectives. Not necessarily, I'm not saying it's my argument, but I'm just saying that's something else that we could throw into the conversation as well.
And we should include it, because a lot of black men hold that position. This argument, as if the only desirable woman is a passive, mild, submissive woman, and we know that's nonsense, because a lot of black men actually like women who have confidence and stand for something. So that can't be it. But what I'm saying, Hugh, is that I'm not talking about individual attraction here. I'm talking about group behavior. You know what I'm saying? There's a certain group behavior that the Asian community exhibits.
Yes.
Would you agree with me? When it comes down to relationships, right? If an Asian man cannot find a suitable Asian wife in the UK,
He's gonna jump on a plane. He's gonna jump on a plane and go back home.
Exactly. He will jump on a plane and find one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No, so if a black, so no black man, one of them could come to me and you and say, oh, find a, that's nonsense, right? Because they have the option of, they could go to Jamaica, they could go wherever they come from, they could go wherever. There's no shortage, right? They could find one.
Look, and if you can't find one in the Caribbean, Africa's a continent. It's not even a region.
Oh my gosh.
You understand?
People are
yeah.
The women,
yeah,
you're spoiled for choice.
Spoiled.
So I guess where we're going with this, which we always end up, is our minds, right? The minds of our people, the minds of our men. What's going on? The psychology of our men.
Oh, I want to throw something in. To that about the mindset as well, right? And in contrast to our, say, for example, our Asian counterparts, right? I think that because we're living under racism, white supremacy, right? Probably not enough time to go into it now, but there's something about how in the mainstream, if you're an Asian man, for example, and you was in the mainstream as a politician, as a sports person, whatever, but you was to marry an Asian woman or wear Asian garb or talk about Asian food, I think there's a certain acceptance, there's a certain normal, like you'd expect that brown man with a brown woman, but there's something about racism, white supremacy in this country, and sometimes in similar parts, I see a similar vibration in America, when a black man is given kind of like that privilege, or we're letting you into the premiership, or we're letting you into the law society, whatever, there's a kind of, wait, you got a black woman? Uh-oh, that's a bit too black, too strong. That's a little bit scary. That's a little bit like, we kind of a white woman in your arm would work a little bit better. You'd be a little bit less you'd come across as a little less you'd be presented as non-threatening.
But
look at how many Premiership players that we have. UK, well, Kwame, how many UK born black Premiership players have we had over the last 20 years? Yeah. And if you used to do a study, somebody smart kid right now, young person in sociology or social studies department in one of these universities listening to the show, go and do a bit of research about dating patterns amongst the top Premiership footballers, or maybe the top sports personalities, boxers or something like that, in terms of black men and who they marry or couple with or have had children with, or whatever the case is. And again, you're saying we're at 50% nationally as black men in this country. I mean, Caribbean men. But I think if you take it to the elites in the sports world and people like that, or maybe men that work in the city, you might be getting into the 90%. I would argue that.
Politicians. I mean, a lot of us, I am sure a lot of us listening to this show would have some admiration for David Lammy, the way he spoke out in terms of the Windrush, the Windrush immigration scandal. But even David Lammy, it has gone down the racial route. A lot of black men who we see on TV, Trevor McDonald, Trevor Phillips.
Is that accident? And so are we suggesting that's accident? Because I'm more willing to give the layman in the street, right? The black man who's a layman in the street in his interracial relationship. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, or they'd say, there's ambiguity, or we don't know. But when it comes, because a pattern amongst those who are in the public limelight is so strong, I do think that it is a product of racism, white supremacy. It's either internalized racism, or there's some sort of unspoken or subtle messaging that you understand as a young 14-year-old, you know what I mean, and you're at the football academy or wherever it is, or wherever you're on your journey to sort of prominence in your field, but you learn that message subtly, but you learn it nonetheless. That's my argument.
Well, and we're out of time, but I guess what's clear, Hugh, is that we came out of slavery, but our mental slavery continues. Our behaviors still exhibiting destructive behavior.
Absolutely, but if any
these behaviors that way, it's here's the thing, no other group behaves like this. We stand out in our behaviors. But Hugh, we've got to go. Next week for sure. We'll continue.
I just want to salute the queens though for their patience with us. I want to salute all the black queens out there with their patience with us, because we love them still.
Thank you. Well, great way to end the show. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay, so
I'd like to send a shout out again to Dr. Kevin Brown from Kemet Radio, the Talkback Show. That was a decent little deep dive, and it had me thinking that what is the type of messaging that takes place in society with young black boys when they're at the football academy, or those that excel in a particular way, as in exceptional scholarship at young ages, where it looks like these young men are in institutions and places in society where these young black boys are going to go on to be prominent and quite successful. Is there some sort of subliminal message, or should I say messaging, taking place? It'd be a really interesting analysis for some type of social science type of research. Is there some sort of implicit femme noire, or as they would say, like a kind of anti-black woman messaging that takes place? But yeah, really interesting subject. And like I said, for myself, interracial marriage, interracial dating and relationships isn't problematic, but it just becomes a significant talking point because of the industrial numbers, as Kevin had brought up in previous shows. Thank you for staying with us for the duration of the High Caliber Man podcast. If you'd like, then press like. Helps us to build the channel. If you found it relevant, then share, subscribe. Whatever you do, remember to stay safe. Till next time, peace.